Hey everybody, welcome to Moment of Clarity. By the end of this video, you will basically understand that the US has essentially used a false flag to assassinate the top general of Iran, General Soleimani. There's basically two kinds of false flags. There's the kind that is the biggest, grandest kind, which is a government or a force literally creating an act of violence, doing something, and then saying it was someone else's fault. A good example of this was called Operation Northwoods. It got all the way to John F. Kennedy's death. The Pentagon wanted to commit terrorist bombings in Florida and then point the finger at Cuba and say Cuba did it. So they were going to do a false flag, and this is known fact. You can look it up. But perhaps a more common kind of false flag is when our military or our government or another government sees something happen, something real that did happen, and they just point the finger the wrong direction in order to help them get into a violent conflict. Another good example of this is what got us into Vietnam, the Gulf of Tonkin incident. We now know, and former Defense Secretary McNamara has admitted live on camera, that the incident that got us into Vietnam was that kind of false flag.
No, it was just confusion. And events afterwards showed that our judgment that we'd been attacked that day was wrong. It didn't happen.
Legitimately, there was a U.S. ship that fired at objects on their radar, thought they were being attacked, and it turned out that it was storm clouds. They were firing at storm clouds. And they hit a lot of them, all right? Because we got damn good military. They took down a lot of those storm clouds. But that battle, so-called, that attack was then used to get our Congress or our president to approve what ultimately became the war in Vietnam. And now we have one of those where our government, Donald Trump, Mike Pompeo, the others are pointing to something and saying that was Iran, and then they use that to murder, to assassinate the top general of Iran, putting us on the brink of global catastrophe, of a massive war, putting us on the brink, honestly, of nuclear war. It's fucking horrifying what they did, and by the end of this video, you will see that it is based on lies. First of all, let's talk about the idea that General Soleimani was this awful terrorist who had to die. He was the #1 bad guy in the world. In the world. All right, that's what Trump's been saying. #1 bad guy needed to die. Donald Trump did not know who General Soleimani was until probably 2 weeks ago. Maybe, okay? General Soleimani is also the head of the Quds Force in Iran. This military force, it's QUDS, the Quds Force. And Donald Trump, when he was running for president, was asked about Soleimani and the Quds Force. And as you can tell, he had no idea what fucking either was. He had no clue. Listen to this carefully, where he thinks the Quds Force is the Kurds.
Are you familiar with General Soleimani?
Yes. Go ahead. Give me a little. Go ahead. Tell me.
He runs the Quds forces.
Yes. Okay. Right.
Do you expect his behavior?
The Kurds, by the way, have been horribly mistreated by us.
So candidate Donald Trump never heard of Soleimani, never heard of the Quds Force, and now all of a sudden, this is the #1 bad guy in the world, right? Now, granted, it was a couple of years ago. He didn't really, he was running for president. And I will say, I also didn't know this shit, but I wasn't running for president, and I didn't just kill the man. Donald Trump still doesn't really know who General Soleimani is, considering he had a lot of trouble pronouncing his name in the press conference fucking last week when he was talking about how they assassinated him. He couldn't quite pronounce the name. He stumbled over it. Now, here's the thing. I, too, stumbled over the name. I didn't just murder the man, okay? If you're gonna kill someone, you should know the fuck who they are. It's common courtesy. Anyway, so who is it that's been pushing this idea that General Soleimani needed to die, or that was even an option? It's Mike Pompeo and John Bolton. Now, John Bolton was recently fired, but before that, he was involved in this push. And Gareth Porter, great journalist, has written a lot about their push to make sure this happened. Well, not written a lot, but written a great article, which you can look up. It's titled Pompeo's Gulf of Tonkin Incident. So we know that Donald Trump didn't know who this guy is, so clearly he's not the world's #1 bad guy. They just made that up recently. So let's go off the other reasons they've given us that this needed to happen. They also say that an attack was imminent, right? An attack on Americans was imminent. It was about to happen. Well, even the Democrats who have now been briefed on this behind closed doors, who have now been briefed on the intel showing there was an imminent attack, they said bullshit. The evidence that was given to them showed no imminent attack. And one of the Democrats said, I was utterly unpersuaded about any evidence about the imminence of a threat that was new or compelling. Okay, so scratch that one off the list. Not the world's #1 bad guy. Donald Trump didn't know who he was, and also no imminent threat. Well, what else you got? Why did this assassination need to happen? They claim that there were attacks by Iranians on U.S. bases before the assassination or trying to hit U.S. diplomats. According to Gareth Porter, back in September, they claimed that a few mortar rounds in the vicinity of the U.S. Embassy and consulate in Basra were evidence of an effort by Tehran to kill or injure U.S. diplomats. But in fact, the rockets landed a kilometer from the U.S. Embassy in the Green Zone. And the one that fell near Basra Airport was nowhere near the U.S. consulate. Then there's the big one, right? The attack that killed the American contractor, right? That's why we had to assassinate Iran's top military leader, was because an American had been killed. Donald Trump has said this many times. An American, they took out an American. So we have to then do an act of war that could lead us into a massive war that kills thousands of American troops and thousands of Iranians. That's a great idea. Wonderful. Good call. On December 27th, a rocket attack on the K-1 Iraqi base near Kirkuk killed an American contractor. The only specific information available was a Reuters report that said from security sources, that sounds a little vague, that Iraqi security forces, again vague, had found a launch pad to Katyusha rockets in an abandoned vehicle near the base. So anonymous people found something that other anonymous people are telling Reuters about that looks like a launch pad for a rocket. Therefore, Iran did kill an American. Bullshit. This is all bullshit. They don't know where the fuck it's coming from. There's many militias operating around there. And here's the last way you know that these reasons for this assassination, for this cold-blooded killing that has put so many at danger, including Americans that live in America, it has put us at danger too. Here's how you know it's bullshit. The idea that Donald Trump cares about this American contractor, when in fact it came out the American contractor who died was an Iraqi American. Donald Trump doesn't give a flying fuck about Iraqi Americans. In fact, they're trying to ban Iraqis and Iranians from getting into the country. Recently, Iranian Americans have had trouble getting back into our country, even though they are fucking Americans. There's example of Iraqi Americans who are veterans being forced from their home and kicked out of the country, all right? Mexican Americans who fought in our military, then they come back and they're kicked out, they're deported from the country. Donald Trump doesn't give a flying fuck about an Iraqi American who was killed in this attack, okay? The real reason General Soleimani was assassinated is because Mike Pompeo and John Bolton and some other neocons want to create a war with Iran. They want to kill a lot of innocent civilians and they want to bring down Iran. Why? Well, because Iran has all the oil, Iran dropped the dollar, Iran's outside our central banking system, and Iran is a stable country in the Middle East where we think we own the entire region. Those are the real reasons they want to create a war with Iran. Donald Trump doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, but he's childish enough, juvenile enough, impetuous enough, and bloodthirsty enough to be okay with assassinating this man and putting us all on the brink of disaster. And one more thing, that Iranian passenger jet that was shot down, killing everyone on board, I mean, I think it was probably shot down. It seems likely now that Iran accidentally shot it down, thinking it was an American response to their retaliation for the general. It's fucking tragic, and it's sad, and yes, you can blame the person who pushed the button that shot the missile, but you can also blame Donald Trump and Mike Pompeo and all of these fucking assholes who have created this battle. I mean, hopefully it doesn't get to a full-fledged war, but when you do something like assassinate the top leader of a country you're not at war with, guess what? You know innocent civilians are going to die. You know it. If not in the drone bomb that assassinated him, in the retaliatory strikes, they knew innocent people would die. They probably thought American soldiers would die in the retaliation. They didn't know that a passenger jet was going to accidentally get shot down, but it all lands on their doorstep. The blood is on their hands. Innocent people die when you do shit like this, okay? And they are lying to us, and they lied to us in Afghanistan, and they lied to us in Iraq, and that truth has come out. The Afghanistan papers was in the Washington Post 2 weeks ago, or whatever it was. The truth about WMD has come out. We know we are lied into these wars, and they're doing it again now. And you've got to talk everyone you know out of believing this horseshit propaganda. And we all got to get out there, get active, get angry, get on the streets. Voting is like picking up litter, all right? It's something you should do, but it's a tiny, tiny, insignificant thing. If you want to create change, get out there and fucking do it. Be a part of something. There's protests that are going to continue to go on around this country, and they need to keep growing to fight against war. That's this episode of Moment of Clarity. This show is incredibly censored. My other show, Redacted Tonight, is incredibly censored and suppressed, so please share this with people. Let them know. Tell them they need to listen to this and realize what the fuck is going on. Also, my book, which has a lot of this information in it, is coming out. That's at leecampbook.com, and I have a lot of live shows for that book tour. I'm coming to Philly, Flagstaff, Austin, Dallas, Asheville, Washington, D.C. That's at redactedtour.com, redactedtour.com. All right, I hope you subscribe, and I hope you click the bell icon next to subscribe, because otherwise YouTube won't tell you about anything. Okay, let's get out there. Let's get active. Keep fighting.